The cabin was tense, filled with the usual chatter of passengers settling into their seats, but all attention suddenly shifted to one small row near the middle. A woman cradled her baby gently, trying to soothe him as the flight attendant approached. What should have been a routine moment turned explosive in seconds. "Ma'am, please keep your child seated properly," the attendant barked. Her voice carried authority, but also a hint of unnecessary aggression. The mother, startled, raised, her hands defensively shielding her child. Before anyone could react, a swift slap landed across her arm, sharp, unjust, and humiliating. Passengers gasped. Some reached for their phones, others just froze, unsure how to intervene. What the attendant didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that this was no ordinary passenger. Her husband wasn't just a businessman, he owned the very airline she worked for. One snap judgment, one cruel action, and the world of privilege, power, and consequence was about to collide in the most shocking way imaginable. This is the story of how a single moment of rage on a flight cabin escalated into a dramatic reckoning that would shake the airline industry, change lives, and leave everyone asking what happens when authority meets accountability in the sky. From the moment Emily Reynolds stepped onto the plane, she had been calm, polite, and fully prepared for the flight. She held her 6-month-old son, Oliver, close to her chest, swaddled in a soft blanket. Emily wasn't just any passenger. She was the wife of Jonathan Reynolds, the owner of the airline. But on this day, she wanted nothing more than to enjoy a quiet flight and ensure her baby was comfortable. The cabin was buzzing with the usual pre-flight energy. Flight attendants checking seats, passengers settling in, overhead bins clanging, and the low murmur of conversation. Emily navigated the narrow aisle carefully, greeting a few passengers with a soft smile. She had flown countless times before, yet she preferred these moments to be low profile, letting the airline operate normally without interference from her family's position. Near the middle of the cabin, a young flight attendant named Vanessa was overseeing the boarding. Known for her strict enforcement of rules, Vanessa prided herself on maintaining order. But what Vanessa didn't know, and what Emily was counting on, was that a routine request about seating or safety would soon spiral into a confrontation that would change everything. As Emily settled into her assigned seat, she made sure Oliver was secure but calm. The baby cooed softly, drawing smiles from nearby passengers. Everything seemed normal until Vanessa approached. "Ma'am, the airline requires that infants remain in the designated safety position during takeoff," Vanessa said, her tone sharp. Emily nodded politely, explaining that Oliver was already safely held and that she had followed all standard procedures. But Vanessa's patience was thin. She had dealt with passengers who bent the rules, who distracted others, who resisted her authority. To her, Emily's calm defiance, even though perfectly justified, felt like a challenge. The atmosphere grew tense. Fellow passengers sensed the friction, leaning forward in their seats, curious but hesitant to intervene. Emily, holding her son close, tried to de-escalate. "I promise, he's secure. I've flown hundreds of times like this," she said gently, hoping to avoid any further tension. Vanessa's response was swift and unexpected. In a sudden move that shocked everyone, she slapped Emily's arm, a clear act of aggression meant to assert dominance. Gasps echoed throughout the cabin. Some passengers whispered frantically, and others reached for their phones, capturing the moment. Emily froze for a heartbeat, her baby startled by the sudden movement, her mind racing. What Vanessa didn't realize was that her action would trigger far more than temporary embarrassment. Emily, calm but determined, now had a choice: react quietly and let the incident slide, or confront it in a way that would expose the weight of authority misused. The scene set the stage for a dramatic clash of power, privilege, and accountability. The flight attendant's rigid rules met the unstoppable force of someone who, though appearing vulnerable, held the ultimate authority. Her husband owned the airline, As the plane's engines hummed and the flight attendants prepared for takeoff, an invisible countdown had begun. Passengers sensed the tension, but had no idea that this was the beginning of a story that would not only end with justice, but leave every witness and employee stunned. The moment Vanessa's hand struck Emily's arm, the cabin went quiet, except for Oliver's startled coos. Passengers exchanged uneasy glances, some reaching for phones to record the confrontation, others clutching armrests, unsure if they should intervene. Emily's heart raced, but her face remained calm, her voice steady. She gently reassured her baby and met Vanessa's gaze without flinching. "Excuse me?" Emily said softly but firmly. "That was unnecessary. My son is safe, and I've followed all regulations." Vanessa, caught off guard by the composed reply, hesitated. Her strict adherence to rules had never been challenged like this, and certainly not by a passenger. She assumed was powerless. Some nearby crew members whispered among themselves, sensing the tension, while others tried to maintain a semblance of order, pretending nothing had happened. What Vanessa didn't know was that Emily's husband, Jonathan Reynolds, wasn't just an ordinary passenger watching from afar. He had been informed of the incident moments after boarding via a discreet call from Emily. Within minutes, a private message had been sent to the airline's operations team. Jonathan's presence loomed, invisible yet unmistakable, as he prepared to address a situation that could no longer be ignored. Emily, meanwhile, remained in her seat, documenting the incident with a level-headed precision that could only come from experience. She spoke calmly to nearby passengers, apologizing for the disruption, explaining that sometimes misunderstandings escalated, and subtly capturing the event's details on her phone. Every gesture, every word was deliberate, a mix of poise, evidence gathering, and control. The cabin crew, previously confident in their authority, began to feel the undercurrent of vulnerability. They realized that this was no ordinary complaint. Emily was composed, articulate, and unyielding. Her presence demanded respect, even from those trained to command obedience. As the plane ascended, the tension did not dissipate. Vanessa continued to patrol the aisle, her face tight with frustration, trying to maintain her image of authority. But every passenger glance, every whisper, reminded her that the moment had already gone viral. Not on social media yet, but within the confined world of the airplane, everyone knew something extraordinary had just occurred. Over the next hour, Emily subtly engaged with other crew members. She observed their reactions, gauging their attitudes toward power and accountability. She noted which flight attendants attempted to rationalize Vanessa's behavior and which quietly disapproved. Every detail added to her growing understanding of the crew's hierarchy, their loyalties, and their fears. Then came the first ripple of consequence. A senior flight attendant, uneasy with the earlier confrontation, approached Emily cautiously. "Ma'am, perhaps we can discuss this calmly after landing," she suggested, a hint of apology in her tone. Emily nodded, smiling politely, knowing that the larger reckoning was yet to come. Back in the cockpit, Jonathan Reynolds had already coordinated a discreet plan. Using internal communication channels, he informed ground staff and security that the incident involved his family, and he requested immediate attention upon landing. Simultaneously, he ensured that cabin cameras recorded every interaction, preserving irrefutable evidence of Vanessa's misconduct. Passengers remained unaware of the full weight of authority in play. To them, it appeared to be a tense personal conflict, escalating mid-flight. But for Emily and Jonathan, every second of the flight was a controlled observation, a strategic collection of proof, and a test of how the airline staff managed accountability under pressure. By the time the plane began its descent, Vanessa's composure had frayed completely. She whispered to colleagues, her previous confidence now tinged with fear. Emily remained composed, cradling Oliver, her demeanor calm yet commanding, sending a clear message. The situation was no longer about the rules of the cabin. It was about justice. Finally, the plane touched down. Ground staff were already waiting, coordinated with Jonathan's instructions. Security escorted Vanessa discreetly for questioning, while Emily and Oliver remained unharmed, calm and composed. Passengers clapped softly, some still murmuring about the shocking events they had witnessed, unaware that the story was far from over. In the following hours, Jonathan Reynolds personally addressed the airline staff, explaining the incident and reinforcing a zero-tolerance policy for misconduct. Vanessa was suspended pending investigation, while crew members received training emphasizing respect, professionalism, and the accountability required in every passenger interaction. Emily's careful planning, calm demeanor, and strategic observation had turned a single moment of aggression into a demonstration of accountability and authority. The rising action of confrontation, fear, and preparation for the consequences set the stage for the ultimate climax, when the full extent of justice would be revealed. The airport terminal buzzed with its usual chaos, travelers rushing, announcements over the intercom, luggage rolling across the polished floors. But in Terminal 3, a storm was about to unfold. Emily Reynolds stepped off the plane, Oliver securely in her arms, her expression calm but purposeful. Behind the scenes, Jonathan Reynolds had already prepared the personnel and security team, ensuring the confrontation would be swift, decisive, and undeniable. Vanessa, the flight attendant, who had slapped Emily, was escorted to a private area. She tried to maintain composure, but the moment she saw Jonathan standing there, calm, authoritative, and unyielding, her bravado faltered. She realized instantly that this was not a routine disciplinary meeting. This was the owner of the airline, and the passenger she had humiliated was his wife. Jonathan's voice was steady, firm, and carried the weight of authority that only ownership could command. "Vanessa," he began, "we have reviewed the cabin footage, passenger statements, and Emily's account of your actions. You struck a passenger holding her infant. Do you understand the severity of your misconduct?" Vanessa stammered, attempting excuses about following protocol, about rules and safety. Jonathan's piercing gaze cut through her defenses. "There is no excuse for assaulting a passenger, especially a passenger whose child you endangered. You are suspended immediately, pending a full investigation. Effective today, you are removed from active flights." Emily, watching silently, felt a quiet sense of vindication. She had maintained her composure, gathered evidence, and now witnessed the immediate consequences of Vanessa's reckless actions. Around them, other crew members and ground staff absorbed the scene. A lesson in authority, justice, and accountability played out in real time. The ripple effect didn't stop there. News of the incident, captured on cabin cameras and corroborated by passengers, began circulating internally within the airline. Employees who had witnessed the event realized that misconduct could no longer hide behind uniforms or hierarchical titles. Jonathan reinforced the message. Respect, professionalism, and accountability were non-negotiable. Vanessa, now fully aware of the consequences, attempted to justify herself one last time. But Jonathan remained unwavering. "Your actions have endangered a child, violated company policy, and breached basic human decency. This is unacceptable. You will undergo retraining and evaluation before any consideration of return, if that ever happens." Emily's calm strength and strategic observation had transformed the incident into a lesson for the entire airline. Employees, previously unsure of how far authority could extend, saw firsthand that accountability was absolute, and that even those who enforce rules must follow them with respect and care. Passengers who had been present were debriefed and offered support, while Emily cradled Oliver, reassuring him and herself that justice had been served. The incident became a teaching moment. The airline's internal culture was being reshaped, and future interactions between crew and passengers would be guided by professionalism, empathy, and strict adherence to proper conduct. By the end of the day, Vanessa had been temporarily removed from all flights, formal investigations were underway, and Emily's quiet courage had sent a clear message throughout the company. No act of misconduct, no matter how small, would be tolerated. Employees realized that authority came with responsibility and that actions, especially reckless ones, had consequences. The climax of the story was complete, a dramatic, real-time reckoning that combined justice, power, and strategy. Emily and Jonathan had shown that accountability, calm composure, and strategic planning could dismantle misconduct instantly and publicly, leaving a lasting impression on everyone involved. By the following morning, the airline headquarters was abuzz with conversations about the previous day's events. Employees who had once assumed that misconduct could slide under the radar were now talking openly about accountability and respect. Emily Reynolds's composure and Jonathan Reynolds's decisive intervention had set a precedent, one that would redefine the corporate culture of the airline. Vanessa, suspended pending investigation, was officially notified of her actions and the company's zero-tolerance policy. The airline implemented immediate training for all flight attendants on professional conduct, passenger safety, and conflict de-escalation. Emily's experience had become the foundation of a new internal policy emphasizing respect, vigilance, and accountability at every level. Passengers who had witnessed the incident were contacted with apologies and reassurances. Some had recorded the event, and when the airline addressed the situation publicly, the story was framed around responsibility, justice, and the importance of protecting all passengers, especially vulnerable ones like infants. Public perception shifted positively, recognizing the airline's commitment to professionalism and integrity. Internally, Emily's strategic calm had inspired employees. Junior staff and flight attendants realized that courage and preparation could confront misconduct, and that leadership was not just about titles, it was about action, integrity, and ethical responsibility. Discussions emerged on how to empower employees to speak up safely when they witnessed any form of misconduct, creating a culture where transparency was valued above hierarchy. Jonathan Reynolds personally oversaw the review of cabin protocols, ensuring that every flight had clear guidelines for handling disputes, emergencies, or confrontations, emphasizing de-escalation rather than aggression. Emily's experience also highlighted the need for proper training on interactions with passengers holding children, particularly during critical phases like boarding and takeoff. The impact extended beyond immediate consequences. Flight attendants and staff began to reflect on their behavior, understanding that even small acts of aggression could escalate into significant reputational and operational risks. The airline became a model for how swift, ethical leadership could restore trust internally and externally, reinforcing the message that misconduct would not be tolerated. For Emily, the resolution was quieter, but no less profound. Her measured response, strategic observation, and ability to maintain calm in a volatile situation had not only protected her child, but also transformed a tense incident into a teaching moment for hundreds of employees. The story became a reference point for discussions about power, accountability, and the importance of responding thoughtfully rather than reactively in challenging situations. By the end of the week, the airline's internal communications reflected a renewed sense of purpose. Policies had been updated, training reinforced, and employees were encouraged to prioritize respect and empathy in every interaction. The incident, once a moment of conflict, had evolved into a lasting lesson on justice, responsibility, and the importance of ethical leadership. Passengers who learned about the resolution expressed relief and admiration for the swift, just handling of the situation. Emily's calm, strategic actions and Jonathan's decisive intervention had not only corrected an injustice, but also sent a message that integrity and accountability were non-negotiable, a message that would resonate throughout the airline for years to come. This story of Emily Reynolds is a powerful reminder that courage, calm composure, and strategic thinking can transform even the most tense and dangerous situations into moments of justice. She showed that no matter how small or seemingly powerless, one might appear, careful observation, preparation, and moral conviction can hold even authority figures accountable. Emily's experience demonstrates that leadership is not just about titles or positions of power. It is about responsibility, respect, and protecting those who cannot defend themselves. Her calm approach, combined with Jonathan Reynolds' decisive action, turned a reckless act of aggression into a lasting lesson on accountability and professionalism. This incident also reminds us that misconduct, especially when unchecked, can escalate quickly and harm others. But standing firm, documenting evidence, and using the proper channels can ensure justice is served and prevent future abuse. We want to hear from you. Have you ever witnessed someone in authority misuse their power? How did you respond? Or how would you handle it now? Comment below with your experiences and thoughts, because every voice matters in promoting justice and accountability. If this story inspired you, share it, like it, and subscribe for more real-life tales where courage meets consequence.